Let's talk about Apple's new double tap gesture because, well, you guys told me that double tap had already been on the Apple Watch for years under the accessibility settings. And you guys told me that the new double tap gesture wasn't new at all. To quote you guys said double tap was already on the previous Apple Watch under accessibility. YouTubers have been pretty ignorant about this in their coverage of the new Apple Watches. It's unbelievable. Yeah, I mean, YouTubers being ignorant, I guess that is pretty unbelievable. But if we have a look at my Apple Watch Ultra version 1 under Settings, Accessibility, Assistive Touch, and you look at that just where you guys said it would be, Assistive Touch allows you to navigate Apple Watch using one-handed gestures, and you can actually customize those gestures. I'm just using this in the default mode here, where pinch will take you forward, double pinch will take you back, clenching your fist will act as like a tap, and double clenching will actually pull up this action menu here. So what the hell, Apple? I thought you told us that double tap was new. But it turns out that this has actually been available since the Apple Watch Series 4 or the Apple Watch SE first generation. So just to test it, I've actually been wearing the Apple Watch Ultra First Edition with that accessibility's double tap gesture turned on my left wrist. Been using it for about a week or so, but on my right wrist, I've actually been wearing the all-new Apple Watch Series 9 with a pre-released version of software on it that does include the new double tap gesture. And not to spoil this whole video for you guys, but the two different modes of gestures here are actually quite different. Okay, just so you guys can see this in action, I'm gonna try my damnedest to start an open water swim only using the accessibility gesture so you can kind of get a better feel for what the capabilities are here. I did turn on Raise to Wake in the settings menu, which is also one of my tips for using the new double tap gesture in the Apple Watch Ultra 2 or the Apple Watch Series 9. But okay, accessibility's assistive touch here, and you can kind of see that blue rectangle here highlighting what can be selected. And you do have a menu system that you can bring up to perform more actions, again, like I mentioned before with that double clench gesture. But as you watch me kind of fumble through this, I would say that the main takeaways here are that one, it does kind of work, definitely not easy to use. And again, keep in mind that this is me after having practiced using it for about a week, but they do work. Two, I'd say that these gestures, they really aren't designed for quick little tasks like pausing your music or answering a call. This accessibility feature seems to be designed to navigate the watch's menu system. And I'm not here to speak for Apple or anything, but it appears to me that this feature is really designed for a user to be able to navigate and perform pretty much any task on their Apple Watch using these one-handed gestures. And part of me wonders if there are people that are actually quite good at using this, navigating and performing tasks this way. Obviously, as you guys can tell, I'm not one of those people, but I do want to show you Apple's new double tap feature. And I'm sure you've seen this before, but it really does seem to be designed both for different users in mind, as well as, for different functionality here. And you might actually already know this. This new double tap gesture is recognized when your index finger double taps against your thumb. Technically, it doesn't have to be your index finger. You can use a different finger. You can even kind of try to do it with your pinky, although I'd say it's a little less reliable with that particular digit. But that motion is detected by a combination of sensors. So that's sensors like the accelerometer, the internal gyroscope, the optical heart rate sensor that's on the back of these watches. And that's a lot of data. And it's the combination of all of that data that's detected and figured out by the all-new S9 SIP. So what's different about the S9 SIP? Well, it's faster, it'll perform more efficiently, and it can perform hard tasks with lower latency. But it also has twice the number of neural engine cores, which doubles the speed of machine learning tasks. And guess what? accurately recognizing patterns from a massive amount of data and combination of sensors is definitely a machine learning task. And this all new double tap will be turned on by default when it does launch, I think in October, but you'll get a notice when you first set up either your Apple Watch Ultra 2 or the Apple Watch Series 9 with the option of turning it off. So if you have no desire to try out this new double tap on your watch, that would be the perfect time to turn it off. Or if you're like me and you want to try it, you can always disable it by going to Settings, Gestures, and double tap is right there. It's above Cover to Mute, and you can turn it off at any time. And keep in mind that this feature isn't active all of the time. It's only active when you've raised your wrist to wake the device. And you're probably worried about accidental touches or double taps or something like that. I've been using it for 2 weeks now. I can't really think of a single time where I've had an accidental use of it or used it unintentionally. So double tapping on the home screen will bring up the new widgets area. Continuing to double tap will cycle through those widgets. And this is actually customizable under Settings, Gesture, double tap. Then there's a Smart Stack option, and you can actually set that to either Advanced or Select. Setting it to Select will first pull up this Smart Stack widget, and then it'll select whatever's in front here. And I think that you're gonna want to keep this setting as Advanced, which is the way that it's set to by default, and it just allows you to keep double tapping and scrolling through those little widget items there. But while we're in settings, there is one more new setting item in here that has to do with music or video playback. You can actually set double tap to either play pause or skip to the next track. And again, I've kept it the default mode here of play pause. But if you're using the watch within an application, or you get a general notification or a general alert, the double tap gesture can be used to confirm that default action item that's presented. Now, my experience, I've mostly been using it for just the basics, answering calls, hanging up calls, snoozing alarms, that sort of thing, which brings me to kind of a weird point, which is I'm actually not using this new double tap feature as much as I had hoped, or as much as I had hoped when I first started playing around with it at the Apple event. And it's not because it's not a cool feature. I actually think that it has more to do with me personally. I don't get a ton of phone calls, or I don't tend to have the music playing where I need to pause it all that often. But I'm thinking that, again, that's more to do with me being a complete dork rather than the feature itself not being functional or usable. Okay, a few quick tips that I have for you if you are starting to play around with this stuff. And then I do have a more general conclusion kind of stuff to come after that. But I suggest that you turn on Raise to Wake. It wasn't on by default on this watch when I set it up, and the watch itself needs to be active and listening for that double tap gesture. Now, I've also found that the feature works best if the device is worn comfortably snug. Doesn't have to be super tight, doesn't have to cut off blood circulation, but the optical heart rate sensor is one of the sensors that's used here, and it does tend to work better if the watch isn't kind of flopping all around your wrist. And these tips, they're generally helpful for any time that you're trying to get more accurate heart rate data from an optical heart rate sensor. But I would also suggest pushing the watch up on your wrist just a touch away from the wrist joint, just because, again, bony wrist joint areas are more difficult for these optical heart rate sensors. Okay, so are there two double tap gestures? Yeah, I think that there kind of are, and they don't actually work congruently with each other. You actually have to pick one or the other, and the watch does make that clear in the settings menu. But they very much work and function differently. They're for very different purposes. The new double tap gesture that's on the Apple Watch Series 9 and Apple Watch Ultra 2 seems so much more reliable. And again, I think that that's due to the hardware, but I don't want to slight the older accessibilities gesture, because in a lot of ways, you can technically do a lot more with that particular set of gestures. But currently, in their current form, I don't think that this is a mode that is intended for the more general public, like the new double tap gesture. I think that this feature is really for those people that need the accessibility mode. And maybe I'm completely wrong, maybe I'm ignorant, A lot of you guys seem to think so in the comments. So don't hold back. I am happy to keep this conversation. I'm happy to continue the slandering of my knowledge down in the comments section. I'd particularly like to hear from you if you've tried either of these two new double tap gestures and you have some thoughts on the subject. But either way, gesture or no gesture, Apple Watch or no Apple Watch, I really do hope that you're getting outside, swimming, biking, running, rinsing, and repeating it all over again. And we will see you guys on the next one.